Welcome back to my channel. Today, I have a shocking and emotional real-life story that will leave you speechless. Imagine trusting a teacher with your child's well-being only to find out they don't believe in his medical condition. Worse, they throw away his life-saving medicine. This story is full of suspense, frustration, and justice. So stay with me until the end. And before we start, make sure to subscribe so you never miss more jaw-dropping stories like this one. Now, let's dive into this unbelievable incident. It all started when my 10-year-old son, Jake, was diagnosed with severe asthma. It wasn't just an occasional cough, it was serious. His doctor made it clear, without his inhaler, even a minor flare-up could become dangerous. Jake's school was informed, medical records were submitted, and his teacher, Miss Karen, was told everything she needed to know. At first, things seemed fine, but then small comments from Jake made me uneasy. He would come home saying, "Miss Karen says I don't need my inhaler so much," or "She told me kids are too dependent on medicine these days." I brushed it off, thinking she was just one of those people who didn't like modern medicine, but I had no idea how bad it would get. Then, one afternoon, my phone rang. It was the school nurse. Jake had an asthma attack during class. He reached for his inhaler, but it was missing. My heart dropped. Missing? How? I had packed it in his bag that morning. The nurse told me she had to use a backup inhaler they kept in the office. Thankfully, Jake was okay. But something felt very, very wrong. I rushed to the school as fast as I could, my heart pounding. When I got there, Jake was still in the nurse's office, looking exhausted, but stable. The nurse explained that he had a mild attack, but would have been in serious trouble if they didn't have a backup inhaler. That's when I asked, "Jake, where's your inhaler? You had it this morning." Jake hesitated, his little hands gripping the chair. "Miss Karen took it," he said quietly. I felt a wave of anger rush through me. "What do you mean she took it?" "She said I was faking it," Jake whispered. "She told me I need to stop acting weak and that kids today rely too much on medicine. Then she took my inhaler and threw it in the trash." I could barely believe what I was hearing. My son could have had a life-threatening attack, and his own teacher, someone I trusted, decided she knew better than a licensed doctor. I turned to the nurse. "Did you know about this?" She looked uncomfortable. "I only found out today. Jake told me after the attack. I was going to report it." That was it. I stormed out of the office and headed straight for the principal's office, my hands shaking with rage. This wasn't just carelessness. This was endangering my child's life, and I wasn't about to let it slide. I burst into the principal's office, barely able to contain my anger. "I need to speak to you right now. It's about Miss Karen." The principal, Mr. Thompson, looked up from his desk, startled by my tone. "Please, have a seat. What's going on?" I didn't sit. Instead, I placed my hands on his desk and said, "Miss Karen threw away my son's inhaler. He had an asthma attack today, and he could have ended up in the hospital, or worse, because of her negligence." His eyes widened. "Wait, she what?" I explained everything. How Jake had been telling me for weeks that she didn't believe in his condition, how she took his inhaler, and how the nurse had to use a backup because his own medication was in the trash. The more I spoke, the more his face darkened. "This is serious," he admitted, rubbing his temples. "I need to investigate this immediately." "Investigate?" I snapped. "What's there to investigate? My son almost stopped breathing because of her. Mr. Thompson sighed. I understand you're upset, and you have every right to be, but I need to follow procedure. I'll speak to Miss Karen and get statements from Jake and the nurse. I wasn't satisfied with that, and in the meantime, my son has to keep going to class with a teacher who doesn't care if he lives or dies. That seemed to strike a nerve. He nodded. I'll pull her from the classroom while we investigate. It wasn't enough, but at least it was a start. I left the principal's office feeling a mix of frustration and determination. I wasn't about to let Miss Karen get away with this. As I walked back to the nurse's office to check on Jake, I pulled out my phone and did something I knew would get attention. I posted about the incident in a local parents' Facebook group. I kept it simple but direct. Parents, be aware. My son's teacher, Ms. Karen, threw away his inhaler because she believed he was faking his asthma. He had an attack at school and could have ended up in the hospital. If your child has medical needs, make sure their teachers actually respect them. Within minutes, my phone blew up with comments. Parents were furious. Some shared their own experiences with Miss Karen, stories of her ignoring kids' allergies, dismissing ADHD accommodations, and even refusing to let a diabetic student check their blood sugar. It was clear this wasn't a one-time mistake. This woman had been endangering students for years. That's when I got a direct message from another mom. You need to go back to the school. Now I used to work there, and I just heard Miss Karen is in the teacher's lounge, laughing about what she did to your son. I saw red. Without thinking twice, I turned around and marched straight back into that school. If she thought she could play with my son's life and get away with it, she had another thing coming. I stormed down the hallway, my fists clenched. I wasn't just angry, I was furious. My child had nearly had a medical emergency, and now I was hearing that the woman responsible for it was laughing about it. I didn't bother knocking when I reached the teacher's lounge. I pushed the door open, and there she was, Miss Karen, sipping her coffee, smiling, and chatting with another teacher like nothing had happened. The room went silent as I stepped inside. Miss Karen raised an eyebrow at me, clearly annoyed that I had interrupted her little break. Oh, she said, setting down her mug. You must be Jake's mom. You threw away my son's inhaler, I said, my voice trembling with rage. And now I hear you're in here laughing about it. She scoffed, leaning back in her chair. Oh, come on. Your kid is fine, isn't he? I did him a favor. These kids today are too dependent on medication for every little thing. A little struggle builds character. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. A little struggle, I repeated, my voice rising. He could have died, you lunatic. Her expression didn't change. She just shrugged. Asthma is overdiagnosed. Half these kids just need to toughen up. I could feel every eye in the room on us. Some of the other teachers looked uncomfortable, but no one spoke up. That's when I pulled out my phone and hit record. Go ahead, I said. Say that again. Tell me my son was faking. Tell me you knew better than his doctor. I want everyone to hear exactly what kind of teacher you are. For the first time, Miss Karen's smug expression faltered. You can't just record me, she stammered, her confidence cracking. Watch me, I shot back. Because this isn't over. Not by a long shot. Miss Karen's face twisted with anger as she realized she had just been caught. She looked around the lounge, expecting someone to defend her, but no one did. The other teachers either looked away or quietly gathered their things to leave. You have no right to record me, she hissed, standing up. And you had no right to throw away my son's inhaler. I shot back. That's child endangerment, and I'm making sure everyone knows what you did. Before she could say another word, the door swung open. It was Mr. Thompson, the principal, his face tight with frustration. Miss Karen, in my office. Now, he said, his voice sharp. She opened her mouth like she was going to argue, but then she saw the way he was looking at her. Without another word, she grabbed her coffee cup and stormed out of the lounge, shoving past me on her way out. I followed them to the principal's office, my phone still recording. By now, the Facebook post I had made earlier had exploded. Hundreds of comments, shares, and messages from other parents. Some had even called the school demanding answers. Mr. Thompson let out a deep sigh as he sat down behind his desk. Miss Karen, I just spoke with the nurse and reviewed Jake's medical records. Everything his mother said checks out. You knowingly took away a child's prescribed medication. Do you have anything to say for yourself? Ms. Karen crossed her arms. I was trying to help him. Kids these days are too soft. Enough, he interrupted. I can't have a teacher on staff who endangers students. He turned to me. I'll be reporting this incident to the school board. Miss Karen will be placed on immediate leave while we review the situation. Leave? I asked, still fuming. That's not enough. She needs to be fired and banned from working with children. Before Mr. Thompson could answer, my phone buzzed with a call. It was from an investigative reporter who had seen my post. The media had picked up the story. Miss Karen's face turned pale as she realized this wasn't going away. The moment I answered the call, I knew things were about to escalate. The reporter on the other end wasted no time. We saw your post about the teacher throwing away your son's inhaler. Parents in the community are outraged. Would you be willing to share your story? I didn't hesitate. Absolutely. As I hung up, I saw Miss Karen's hands trembling. For the first time, she looked scared. She wasn't just facing consequences from the school. The entire community was about to learn what she had done. Mr. Thompson's phone started buzzing nonstop. His secretary rushed in, whispering something in his ear. He sighed heavily, rubbing his forehead. The district office just called. Parents are demanding answers, and news stations are already asking for a statement. I crossed my arms. Good. Maybe now something will actually be done. Miss Karen finally snapped. This is ridiculous. I was just trying to teach kids to stop relying on medication. The world has gone soft. I turned to face her, my voice calm but firm. You almost killed my son. She scoffed. Oh, please. He was fine. No. I cut her off, stepping closer. You're not a doctor. You're not his parent. And you had no right to put his life in danger because of your ignorant beliefs. Before she could argue, Mr. Thompson stood up. Miss Karen, gather your things. You're officially suspended. Pending the school board's decision, I strongly suggest you start looking for another job, because I doubt you'll be teaching again. She opened her mouth to protest, but stopped when she saw the look on his face. Defeated, she grabbed her bag and stormed out of the office. I exhaled, finally feeling some relief. But I wasn't done yet. I went home and sat down with Jake, explaining that his teacher would never be able to hurt him or any other child again. The next day, I did an interview on live TV, sharing our story. The outrage was overwhelming. Parents across the district demanded action. Within a week, the school board had no choice. Miss Karen was fired, She tried to fight it, but with all the media attention and dozens of parents coming forward with complaints, she stood no chance. In the end, I knew one thing for sure. No one would ever doubt my son's medical needs again. At the end of the day, this wasn't just about my son. It was about every child who has ever had their medical needs ignored or dismissed by an authority figure who thought they knew better. No one has the right to play with a child's health. To all the parents watching, always stand up for your children. Fight for them. Speak up. And never let anyone tell you that your child's health doesn't matter. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more real life incidents like this, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.